First of all, I want to thank you all for joining us today. I know that there's a lot of places you could be, but I truly believe that God led you here for a specific purpose, and that's what we're going to talk about today. My name is Pastor Steve. If you don't know, I'm the one who has to make all of the important decisions. I'm the one who gets to make all of the important decisions around here. Have you ever been in a situation where you felt completely helpless? I'm sure you have. I remember one of the first times that I remember thinking this. I was a youth pastor, and I was taking a group of students to go skiing. We were in a 16-passenger van. And if you don't know anything about 16-passenger vans, let me educate you on how poorly they handle, especially in the snow. Now, when we left to go skiing, it was not snowing. And I don't remember exactly because it was many years ago. I don't remember there being a lot of snow in the forecast. But we get about a third of the way there. And it was not snowing when we left. We get about a third of the way there, and there's already 3 inches of snow on the ground. And in the back of my mind, myself, 6 kids in the back, we can make it. So we kept going, and it kept snowing. And my confidence in making it to the ski hill was growing very dim. And then we were on this stretch of road, and the road kind of wasn't completely level. It was tilted just a little bit, and I'm not sure why they did that. But we're driving down, and probably by now there's about 5, maybe 6 inches of snow on the ground. And it's a 2-lane road, 1 lane going that way, 1 lane coming this way. And I am thinking in the back of my mind, let's go ahead and just stop. Let's turn around. Let's go home, because this could be really bad. I remember those thoughts coming into my mind, and it wasn't long. It wasn't 30 seconds after those thoughts went through my mind, I see a semi coming. And I noticed that the semi was getting really, really close to that center line. As the semi is getting a little closer, he's getting closer to me, and closer, not to the center line, because he's past the center line by now. He's getting closer to the other line. And by the time he gets from me to about the double doors where that exit sign is, about that far away, he is fully in my side of the road. And I had already started kind of drifting to the left, just in case. And then I realized that there's not a whole lot I can do because we started sliding left. Now, there was good news in that as we were sliding left, we were not going to hit that semi. The bad news is after you slide left into the oncoming traffic or oncoming lane, there's a big embankment that goes down. And I don't think going down in that embankment was any better than hitting that semi head on. Pushing the brakes didn't do any good. Turning the steering wheel didn't do any good. I'm in a situation where there is nothing I can do to change the situation. We're either going to hit this guy head on, probably not. We're going to slide right off the edge of the road. That seemed more likely. And there was nothing I could do. You've probably been in that situation. Maybe you're in that situation right now where you just don't see any hope. It doesn't seem like any decision that you can make is going to change the outcome of what you're facing. Maybe it's a relationship that has gone south. Maybe it's a financial situation. Whether it's of your making or somebody else's making, you just don't see any hope in the future. Maybe it's a prognosis from a doctor. Whatever the situation is, we feel helpless because it doesn't seem like there's anything we have no power in the situation. And what happens with us when we face that is that there's one particular emotion that rises to the top and then resides in our brain for a long time. And that is fear. Because when you're facing a situation, and that's where I was, in that 16-passenger van, driving, sliding toward what looked like going over the edge of an embankment, fear set in. And if you've ever been put in a situation that it is high stress, high fear, your brain kicks into hyperspeed. And you start processing things in your mind, thinking about things very quickly. What's going to happen to me? What's going to happen to these kids? What is pastor going to say when I ruin the van? All of these things very quickly run through your mind. But you have no control over it. Here's what I want you to know. And here's what I had to realize. Fear does not have to have the last word in your story. We're going to fear. It's built within us. Actually, fear is not necessarily a bad thing. You know why I don't take my hand and stick it in a pile of burning coals? Because I'm fearful of how the pain is going to react to my body and all of the nasty things that's going to happen to my hand if I stick my hand in those burning coals. Fear is not necessarily a bad thing. It can be helpful for you. But it can also debilitate you. It can cause you to stay in the situation you're in and not find any hope, any way out, or any power. There's a story in the Bible where a lady finds herself in this very situation. And I want to look at this story of this lady and her interaction with Jesus, because her interaction with Jesus, what Jesus says to this woman, is going to revolutionize, if you really understand it and you really take it, it's going to revolutionize your situation. And maybe you're not in a situation right now where it seems hopeless. Maybe you just need a little bit of direction. Maybe fear is starting to creep in and you need an answer for it. Or maybe maybe everything is going great in your life right now. And you're saying, well, I don't really need any of this. Chances are you know somebody who's going through a difficult time. And if you want to be a good friend, you're going to help them. Who is this person? Well, if you remember, if you were here last week, I know a lot of you weren't here last week, I talked about the story of Jesus and a disciple, Thomas, and all of his other disciples, and they had gotten word that one of Jesus's closest friends, Lazarus, was sick, and he was going to die. And Jesus, being the caring person he was, rushed really quickly over to where Lazarus was to make sure everything was okay. Is that what happened? No. He said, I ain't worried about it. He actually even says, Lazarus' situation will not end in death. Guess what happened to Lazarus? He died. Does that make Jesus a liar? We're going to look at that in a minute. So they eventually waited several days and finally made their trip to Bethany, where Lazarus lived. And this is where we're going to pick up. John chapter 11, verses 18 through 26 says this. Bethany was only a few miles down the road from Jerusalem, and many of the people who had come to console Martha and Mary in their loss. Now remember, Lazarus is dead. Lazarus is Martha and Mary's brother. When Martha got word that Jesus was coming, she went to meet him. But Mary stayed at the house. Martha said to Jesus, "Lord, if only you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that God will give you whatever you ask for." Jesus told her, "Your brother will rise again." "Yes," Martha said, "he will rise when everyone else rises at the last day." Jesus told her, "I am the resurrection and the life. Anyone who believes in me will live even after dying. Everyone who lives in me and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this, Martha?" Put yourself in Martha's situation. Remember I talked about hopeless situation? There's absolutely nothing that could be done in your situation. This is where Martha's at. Her brother's dead, and she knew without a doubt that if Jesus had been here, he could have kept her from dying, or him from dying. She was completely convinced that Jesus had the ability to save Lazarus. But the thought that Jesus had even more power than that seemed to escape her. Jesus had a better plan in mind, better plan than what Martha had. And believe it or not, the situation that you find yourself in, Jesus has a better plan than you do. We can make the plans we want. We can say, "Well, God, I'm in this financial situation. I don't know how to get out. There's nothing I could do to get myself out of this. If you could just pay all the bills I have, God, just give me enough money to pay all the bills I have, that would be perfect. I would be in good shape there." That's the best way for this to play out. What if God said, "That's not my plan. That's not what I want to happen"? How would you respond? Because that's kind of where Martha is at. Martha's at a situation where she wanted something and she had a plan on how to get it. She wanted her brother healed, and she wanted Jesus to come and heal him. But Jesus didn't. And so now she's in this situation. What else can I do? I don't see anything else. We all have what I'm going to call a Lazarus moment. It's a moment in our lives where something major has happened. And if you haven't had one, I pray you won't, but chances are you will. Or at the very least, somebody you know will. And for Martha, this Lazarus moment was a pivot for her and who she not only believed Jesus to be, but also what Jesus could do. what do you think Jesus could do for you? Who do you think Jesus is? Because that is going to define how we respond and react to Jesus. If we only think Jesus could heal the sick, then if somebody we love dies, we would not think anything else, that nothing else is going to happen to them. Here's the thing we don't realize, and that is Jesus was deeply invested in Martha, in Mary, and in Lazarus. We don't quite grasp that. When we read the scripture, they were just good friends. John 11:5 says this, and it tells us plainly, Jesus loved Martha, Mary, and Lazarus. They weren't just friends that he went and hung out with every once in a while. They were dear, intimate people to him. And because of this, for Martha, it seemed like a betrayal. Jesus, I thought you loved us. I thought you would at least love us enough to be here when Lazarus died. And yet Jesus wasn't. Now, why wasn't Jesus there? Why did Jesus choose not to go there? Well, we know the story. Okay? We know that eventually Jesus raises Lazarus from the dead. But why he waited so long to go there there's more complex ideas to it. And that is this. In Jewish understanding, for 3 days after somebody dies, their spirit is said to be, for lack of a better word, hovering around the body or over the body. That's their understanding. That's how they perceive things. But after 3 days, specifically on the 4th day, their spirit departs from the body. And so Jesus, in waiting for the 4th day, was doing something very profound for their understanding. Is that they would have viewed, if Jesus had come and on the 3rd day, Jesus had raised Lazarus from the dead, for some of them it would have been, he wasn't really dead because his spirit hadn't completely departed. No, what Jesus did was he showed without a shadow of a doubt in everybody's mind who was there that I have the power to bring people back from the dead. Martha didn't understand what Jesus was doing. All she saw was a hopeless situation. But Jesus saw something better, something deeper. And whatever situation, whatever Lazarus moment you're dealing with, I want you to understand that Jesus knows and he's taking care of things that you don't see, that you don't know, that you are completely clueless to. But there's a lot more to this story. There's a lot more to this story. When we start digging in to Jesus' response, when we face these Lazarus moments, these health issues that seem to death be the only outcome, these financial issues where you're never going to get your life back, these relational issues where it seems like this relationship is thrown into a grave and a big rock is rolled over in front of it, and there is no way of getting in there. It's been there so long, it's starting to smell. And you have nothing you can do about it. It just live with it. I want to encourage you in this. Some of the godliest men and women who who are recorded in the Bible dealt with this same thing. We all know the phrase, my God, why have you abandoned me? Right? We all have heard that. And we all attribute it to Jesus. Did you know Jesus was quoting somebody else? In Psalms, it says, chapter 22, verse 1, my God, why have you abandoned me? Why are you so far away when I groan for help? This seems like somebody who is in a terrible situation, who needs help, that doesn't understand who God is. And yet the person who wrote that was considered to be the man after God's own heart. How could the man after God's own heart find himself in a situation where there seems to be no hope and God had abandoned him? Listen, it doesn't matter how spiritual you are or spiritual you are not. Everybody faces times where it seems like there's just nothing that they can do. They are helpless. Jesus knows that. And I have an idea that I want you to grab a hold of. Not only does fear not have to have the last word, but if you are in a Lazarus moment, you are in exactly the right place for a resurrection. So, Martha, she's struggling. God, if you'd been here, Jesus, if you'd been here, this wouldn't have happened. And Jesus' response was, hey, your brother is going to live again. And her response is, yeah, when we all rise again. You know what? Her theology is right on cue. But Jesus didn't say this to give her a theological quiz. Jesus wasn't testing her intelligence about how the end is going to play out. What Jesus was doing was he was setting her up to give her some information that would revolutionize her life. And the words that he uses in verses 22 and 25 and 26, Jesus told her, I am the resurrection and the life. Anyone who believes in me will live even after dying. Those words don't seem very comforting in the midst of what your Lazarus situation. They don't seem like they're going to help a whole lot. Well, yeah, Jesus, we know we know that that there's going to be a resurrection, and we know that life is going to be great. But I want to look at three words in this statement that might, when we really understand what they mean, and not just what we perceive, it will change the way we look at our Lazarus situation. The first one is the word believes. He says, everyone who believes in me, who lives in me and believes in me will never die. That word, and I'm going to go a little into geek mode. So that geek mode being, I'm going to talk about the Greek here for a minute. That word for faith is not just a set of beliefs. If you just have an opinion, a certain opinion about Jesus, then everything's going to be okay. But that's not what that word means. That word is actually an active verb, which means there is some type of action associated with this. It is a continuous. So the Greek is set up a little differently than our English language. And so they can use a word, but that word has several different aspects to it. One of that aspect of that word is a continuous thing. You don't just believe once, but it's a continual belief. It's also in the present tense. It's not talking about you did believe. It's not talking about you will believe. It's talking about you believe right now. Now combine that with a continual. So you believe now and you continue to believe. And then as I said, it's an active verb, which means there are things that you have to do. It's an ongoing, never stopping, forward leaning action of trust. Doesn't mean you just make a decision one time at a revival or at youth camp or wherever and everything is going to be okay from then on out. No, because we know that as you live through life, you experience things. And some of them are tragic and terrible. The Lazarus moments in our life. And it's really hard to walk through those moments with hope if you're clinging to a past belief in God. So when Jesus asked Martha, "Do you believe this?" It wasn't some abstract thing he was asking her. He was saying, right now, in the middle of all of this, with the tomb sealed, the mourners surrounding, days of decay setting in, and a stone in the way, do you believe this? Do we believe Jesus? The problem, when I said earlier, we let fear set in, the problem is that fear is the silent killer of belief. Fear is a silent killer of our faith. It doesn't come in loud. It doesn't come in bursting the doors open, yelling, "I'm here to kill your faith." No, it sets in quietly, and it's small to begin with, almost unnoticeable. But then what we do is we feed it. We take away the faith, and we give our ideas to fear, and it slowly grows. Have you ever driven at night and there's fog everywhere? It's difficult. Have you ever driven at night, fog everywhere, on a road that you drive every day, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day? When the fog sets in, you know this road. You know it forwards and backwards. You can probably drive with your eyes closed. But when the fog sets in, what do? Especially when it's dense. Especially when you just can't see anything. You turn your brights on. Well, that didn't help. And so you pull over to the side of the road in fear of going forward because you can't see the end. And that's where we find ourselves oftentimes, is that maybe you've lived your entire life depending on Jesus, and all of a sudden this fog, this Lazarus moment sets in, and it paralyzes you, and all you can do is pull over to the side of the road and sit there. We have to overcome our fear with believing Jesus for who he is. So who is Jesus? Who is Jesus? Well, he tells us in our story. He says, "I am the resurrection and the life." Resurrection. one of the things that Mary understood about the resurrection is that it was going to happen, and it was going to happen at some point in the future. The problem is that the resurrection that Jesus is giving us isn't just about some point in the future. When he says, I am the resurrection, that word I am isn't I will be. It is I am. And Jesus is making a huge theological statement about who he believes himself to be when he says I am. I am comes that I am statement comes from Exodus chapter 3, when Moses is standing in front of the burning bush, and he asks the burning bush who is God. He says, "Who should I say sent me?" And God says, "I am who I am." That's who you tell them. Tell them I am sent you. And so when Jesus is saying I am, and he does this in the book of John several times, when Jesus says I am the resurrection, he's identifying himself with the one who created life. If there is somebody who could create life out of nothing, what makes you think he can't bring it back to life? And unfortunately, we often view Jesus as I am the resurrection as, well, I know he can do it in the future, but I'm not sure he can do it now. That's where Martha was. Well, I know we're going to have a resurrection in the future, but what about now? Listen, we know. We look back at history and we can see all of the evidence that Jesus lived, that Jesus was crucified, and that Jesus rose again. And I don't have time I could go into a whole lot of information to show you how that is true. But if you view it as just something that happened way back when, and then it's going to happen way in the future, you're missing the idea of what Jesus said when he said, "And I will always be with you." I am the resurrection, and I will always be with you. But he doesn't just say, I am the resurrection. He also says, I am life. Now, there's three Greek terms that are usually used in the Bible to talk about life. One of them is bio, which talks specifically about biological life. One of them is psyche. You can probably figure out what kind of life that is. Thought processes. And the other one is zoe. And zoe deals with life as we experience it. So, have you ever had a moment in your life where everything is going great? Everything is perfect, and maybe you just got doing something that was really good. Maybe you're on vacation and you're sitting relaxing by the beach, and if you don't like the beach, you're relaxing by the lake up in the mountains. If you don't like the beach or the mountains, you're out of luck. But you're sitting there relaxing, and you think to yourself, this is life. That's the kind of life that Jesus is talking about when he says, I am life. More than just this physical stuff that we can touch and see and hear and feel. It's our experiences. And he wants you to have a life that you can experience. And yet most of our experiences in life don't seem to lead to what Jesus says about having abundant life. Well, my life has been, maybe you're thinking, and you've thought this, my life has been anything but abundant. I have done everything I thought I knew how to do, and life has been miserable. Let me ask you this. Have you been recognizing Jesus as the resurrection? Have you been practicing a belief, not just a thought about Jesus, but a continual, everyday, active belief in Jesus? Because that is where that abundant life comes from. It doesn't happen just spontaneously, out of air, all of a sudden everything is wonderful. It happens when a person recognizes who Jesus is and recognizes their responsibility in believing who Jesus is. That's where that life comes from. We want to believe the best. Fear won't let us. We want to do what we think is best, but we seem to be strapped tight in a straitjacket and can't move. And what Jesus is saying is real simple. I know your situation. I know you don't have the power physically, and you don't have the power mentally. But I do. To help you understand this a little bit more, the students are going to come. I think they're about ready. The students are going to come and they're going to do an illustration for you. I think they're coming. Give it up for them one more time. I've seen that skit probably 100 times. And it still hits the same way. You know why? Because I've learned what Jesus meant, even if in a small part, what Jesus meant when he said, I am the resurrection and the life. And those who believe in me, even though they are dead, yet shall they live. I don't know where you're at today. I know a lot of you. I know some of your situations, some of the trials and the struggles that you faced. But are you living in resurrection? Maybe you're here and you leave this building today and you're driving down the road and you get hit by a semi and you die, and you don't know what would happen. You don't. Maybe you might go to heaven because I've done some good stuff in my life. Maybe I wouldn't go to heaven because I've done some really bad stuff in my life. You know what Jesus did? He took all of those things, all of those questions, and says, you know what? It's not about what you do, it's about what I've done. You want a life, a resurrected life? Jesus can offer that to you. And he does it by fairly simple things. First, you admit that you don't get it all right all the time. You do some bad stuff every once in a while. Or for some of us, even more than once in a while. And you realize that nothing you can do is ever going to be good enough. Then you acknowledge that, hey, Jesus says I don't have to be good enough because he is. And then you believe. You believe that he paid everything that had to be paid for you to spend eternity with God. Because let me tell you, you give your life to Jesus, you leave this room, you're still going to do bad stuff. You're still going to make mistakes. Probably before the day's out, I'm probably going to say something I shouldn't do to my wife. Because I'm human. Jesus says that if you believe in me and follow after me, you'll get to go where I go. In a couple of minutes, I'm going to have the worship team come on up. In a couple of minutes, I'm going to give you an option. But I know that there are some people here who have already made that decision. You've already committed your life to Jesus. You already believe that Jesus has given you a chance at eternity with God. But you are still in a situation that seems without hope. You're still in a situation where there's nothing you can do. You know what God says? There might not be anything you can do, but there's something I can do. And what we have to do is instead of being like Martha, who's trying to fix the situation that she can't fix, we need to be like Lazarus and let God do his thing. Listen, Jesus did not, the stone in front of that tomb was not rolled away so that Jesus could come out of it. That stone was rolled away so that we could look in and see that Jesus isn't there anymore. We're going to open up the altars. And if you're dealing with something, if you're in the midst of a Lazarus moment and you need God to do something, find a place at the altar and reach out, because he's waiting for you to ask him. Or maybe you're, who is this Jesus guy? I hear you say that he's no longer in a tomb, that he died and now he's alive. But I don't know anything. I don't know anything about him. I don't know much about him. Jesus' concern in coming to this earth is to give you an opportunity to experience eternity with God. That's it. But one of the things that we miss is that we think that eternity starts when we die. It doesn't. It starts now. You are already living in eternity. The only question is, when you die, are you going to spend that eternity with God or apart from God? If you don't know, cry out to God. Believe in Jesus and follow out. Repent. Say, God, I've done some stupid stuff. I'm probably going to do some more stupid stuff. But you know what? Help me to turn away from the stupid stuff and start following you. And then he will lead you. Ask him to give you direction. Ask him to give you wisdom. Ask him to direct your life. And he will. Don't try and roll that stone away. Don't let the stone be rolled away and you still keep all that bad stuff in visible sight. When Jesus says, Lazarus, come forth, you know what happened? Lazarus came out of the tomb. And Jesus gives us the opportunity to call out that stuff in our life. That Lazarus moment, he says, I got it taken care of. But we try and roll that stone back in front because we want to do it our way. We don't want to do it God's way. We want to do it our way. Don't try and undo what God wants to do before he's even done it. So as the worship team leads in a song, I want to encourage you. Find a place at the altar. Let God move in your life. Don't miss out on the opportunity for God to do a miracle because you like the stone where it's at. Or you don't like the stone where it's at and you're just not willing to let God move it for you. So as they lead us in a song, if you need something or you love somebody who needs something, find a place up here and let God do his thing. We watch that, sometimes we might think, well, it's not really that big of a deal. The relationship that we chase after, it's not that big of a deal. It's not that big of a deal to God. The alcohol, drug abuse, it's not that big of a deal to God. The porn, the chasing after money, it's not that big of a deal to God. But if you're chasing anything other than Jesus, it is that big of a deal to God. And I'm sure there are people who didn't come up. No condemnation. God's working with you. God's working on you. That's fine. But I don't want you to leave here without experiencing what God has for you. So I'm going to let the worship team sing a little bit more of this song. And then I'm going to come back and close the service with a prayer and an encouragement. Let God work on your heart. The worship team is going to be up here for a little while longer while people are praying. But I don't want to rush anybody out. But I do want you to do me a favor. On your bulletin, there was a Connect card. Or in the chair in front of you, there's a Connect card. On the back of that Connect card, there's a place for prayer requests and questions. I want to know what God is doing in your life. Maybe you made a decision to follow after Jesus for the first time, or maybe you made a decision, you realized that you were following Jesus and you stepped away from that, and now you've committed to following Jesus again. I want to know about it. Maybe God showed you something. Maybe God answered a prayer. Maybe God is doing something in your life. I want to know about it. I am going to be the one who gets these. I read through them, and during the week when people hand them in, I pray for them. I want you to do not only this, but I want you to do me another favor. If God did something in your life, I want you to tell at least one other person. For two reasons. One is it helps solidifies what God did in you. And two, it allows those people closest to you to celebrate with you. And we need both of those. So before I close in prayer, I told you I had an encouragement for you. This is not the end. This is a new beginning. This is a new beginning. And I'm not talking about the church. I'm talking about your life. Go live your new beginning. If God's done anything in your life, go live it. The abundant life that He offers, the resurrection that He offers. Jesus, we love you and we thank you. Not just for the sacrifice that you made on that Friday thousands of years ago, but for the new life, the resurrection you produced 3 days later. Thank you so much for that. Thank you. Now go with us. Continue to move on our hearts and our minds. Continue to draw us closer to you. Help us to cry out to you when we don't have answers, or when we're trying to do things our way. Help us to reach out to you. We love you, and we thank you for all that you've done already. Now go with us. We ask in your holy name. Amen. Amen. Thank you again for joining us. I pray God's blessing on you as you go enjoy the rest of the day.